Hi, my name is EKramer, and I'm here to talk about the periodic table. So this right in front of you is the periodic table of elements. Basically what it is basically a table that organizes all the elements that we know of today. Elements, they're basically considered as the simplest substance. Basically they cannot be chemically broken down into something simpler. And how it's identified is by its atomic number. Its atomic number on the periodic table can be found in the top left-hand corner of each square. So for example, hydrogen right here has an atomic number of 1. So I want you to look at this periodic table a little carefully, and I want you to notice if there's a discernible pattern to it. And what I mean by that is that if you look at this periodic table, you'll notice that 1, hydrogen, is in its top left-hand corner, whereas number 2 is all the way over here on the right. And so number 3, lithium, is right below number 1 in its own row. And you would think, well, with this pattern, number 4 should be to the very far right, right under helium, but instead it's not. It's actually right next to number 3, right? So maybe with this pattern, you would think that 5, 6, and 7 would probably follow along, but actually there's a big gap between 4 and 5. Element number 5 is boron, and it's all the way on the right. There's a big gap in between it. And actually elements 5 through 10, right, is all in a row. And so if you think about it, this periodic table, it seems very strange. It doesn't seem to be very organized whatsoever. And basically the purpose of this video is basically I want you to know that this periodic table is actually organized in a very clear pattern, and I want you to understand this pattern of how it is organized. So before I just tell you how this periodic table is organized, I wanted to give you a challenge. With this challenge, pretend that this is a card game in which there's a deck of cards and where there are many different sorts of aliens. So here's a deck of cards, and let's imagine that somehow, some way, in this deck of cards, you're missing one piece of card, right? And so in order to find this one piece of card, you laid all of these alien cards on this table, and you notice that there's a pattern. So in a minute, not yet, what I'd like you to do is look at this table that I've organized with all the alien cards from this game that I have, and I want you to see whether or not you can find a pattern, and basically if you can determine what this missing card is. So in other words, instead of trying to find the card, maybe you could just take a piece of index card and draw on that index card that alien. So what I'd like you to do is pause the video and guess, make a prediction of what you think that card would look like. Go ahead and do that. So hopefully you got a chance to look at this very carefully. And so if I were to look at this, maybe hopefully you notice that there are some patterns. I notice there's a pattern right here. If I were to look across each row on this table right here, I will notice that each row, all of these aliens have a similar body shape. For example, this one has a triangular shape. This row right here has a rectangular shape. All of these aliens right here have a rectangular shape. And then here, all of these aliens have kind of an oval shape right here. And so if I had to guess, right, this card that I'm missing must have an alien shape, body shape of a circle. So that's my guess right there. And if I look at this carefully, all of these aliens, they have their heads. So I'm going to draw a head. They have 2 eyes. They have a little smile. They have 2 legs. Okay, and so you'll also notice that or at least what I notice, is all of these aliens have a right, well actually it's the aliens left, my right, but they all have a left hand, so I'm going to draw a left hand. And so maybe you notice there's another pattern in terms of the hands and the fingers on the hands, right? If you look, right, the very first one, this has 1 finger, this has 2 fingers, this alien has 3 fingers, and this alien has 4. And if you look across the row in this one has 1 finger, 2 fingers, 3 fingers, 4. And this one also has 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so if I had to guess, my alien, the card that I'm missing, the alien must have 2 fingers right here. So I'm going to draw 2 fingers. And so maybe as you looked at this, you will notice that Well, not only does the fingers, right, go in increasing order, but also all of these aliens right here, in terms of the vertical columns, have one finger. And you'll notice all of these aliens in the vertical column has triangular hair. All of these aliens right here have no hair. Instead, what they have are feet, right? Here, all of these aliens also have no hair, but they have lines in their body. And in fact, if you look at the lines, it also goes in order in the sense that this alien right here has 1, this alien has 2 lines, this has 3, and this has 4. Nevertheless, if you look at this card right here that I'm missing, if I were to follow that pattern, well, all these aliens in this vertical column right here has straight hair. And so I would guess that my alien also has straight hair. And if you look, it also goes in order. Here I only have 1 strand of hair. Here I have 3. Here I have 4. Here I have 1. Here I have 2. Here I have 3. Here I have 4. And so I would guess that my alien have 2. So what does this challenge have to do with the periodic table? Well, actually, you have just modeled what Mendeleev did. Mendeleev is the father of the periodic table. And here is Mendeleev right here. Here's his picture. Not of big importance, but what I want you to notice is this right here. I want you to understand how this periodic table is organized. That's what I'm trying to get to with this. But notice that this right here is his original periodic table. I know it looks very, very different. But his periodic table, when he organized all of the elements, just imagine that instead of cards, instead of aliens on those cards, imagine that they are all elements that we know of at that time. And so Mendeleev organized, he noticed that some elements had similar characteristics, right? When we looked at this table right here of the aliens, we noticed that some rows right here, all of these rows right here, all of these aliens have a rectangular body. All of these have a triangular body. He also noticed that with that elements, and so he organized them. He noticed that all of these elements right here, right, these are highly, highly reactive metals. And so he grouped them together, even though they do not necessarily go in order, like in a list format. All right, he just grouped those together. He also noticed that these elements right here, are also similar in characteristic. And so as he organized it, similar to what you noticed, right, there is a missing card right here. The elements that would usually go and where I have the red box highlighted with a question mark, those elements did not fit the characteristics of all the other elements in that row. And so he left that blank, thinking that there must be some elements that we had not discovered at that time. And that's absolutely how he discovered some of those missing elements. He predicted, based on the properties and based on how he organized this periodic table, he predicted what the properties of those elements were, and he predicted them correctly. And so in a way, he discovered those elements without it being formally discovered at the time. And so that's how this challenge models the periodic table. So this was Mendeleev's periodic table. It looks nothing like we have today, but what we have today is still the same idea. All of these columns right here that you see, this column right here, the red column, all of these elements share similar characteristics. These elements in the red column are called alkali metals. And the reason they're called alkali metals is because they're highly, highly reactive metals. And then these elements right here in the blue, right? These elements all share similar characteristics. They share the characteristics, these are called halogens, and these are highly reactive non-metals. And then here in the very last column, these are green. These green elements, these are noble gases. These are inert. They do not react with anything, with any other elements whatsoever. And so what I have highlighted here, you will notice that I call this We Are Family based on the song. Reason why I have this is because since all of these share similar characteristics with one another, this column right here is called Family 1. It's also sometimes called Group 1, but I want to drive that characteristic that all of this right here, they share similar characteristics. So this right here is considered as Family 1, this right here is considered as Family 17, and this right here is considered as Family 18. So why do these elements have similar characteristics? Well, stay tuned for my next video, which will talk about valence electrons. Thank you.